Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital. I'm here with my friend Andres from Champions. How are you?
I'm good, Sydney. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you today. So, Andres had such a very cool kind of journey into venture. We met through VC Unleashed, which is a nonprofit organization that has done marvelous things for especially venture capitalists and founders that are from diverse backgrounds, which I really appreciate. And I'm sure you appreciate it as well. So please tell us a little bit about what you do at your fund and tell us about your fund.
Certainly. Thank you for having me again. So I'm Andres, and I am a VP at Champion Venture Partners. Champion Venture Partners is an investment firm that looks to revolutionize sports investing by investing in sports and the entire value chain of sports, athletes, and performance. We do this through uh, minority stakes in companies, as well as strategic holdings for either high growth or cash flowing startups.
Yeah, that is really cool. So, of course, you're the first sports focused VC that's on my podcast. So, I have many, many questions. So, I know that you started your venture career as a venture scout. So, did you do any sports related investments during those times? Because you've done it for many firms too before you became a VP here. So, tell us about what helped you get to your position now, and if you've had any deals in this particular field before.
Uh, Definitely. So, as a scout, no, I did not make any investments into sports uh,
Damn.
and ventures. I know. I wish I would have. It's that sports is part of portfolios, but or at least sports tech is part of venture portfolios, but doesn't take a lot of focus
Mm.
uh, primarily. When you think of sports investing, you think of investing in teams.
Yeah.
So that's typically big, PE firms, big names associated with it. What led to being at CVP? One is that I was an athlete for a majority of my youth until an injury took me out. Basically, freshman year of college, I ruptured my Achilles, and that was the end of my sports career. And that's when I put my focus on economics, and that's was my major in college. So what led me to venture is through my experience being in the intersection of business, technology, and innovation. At one point, I was part of the founding member of a an incubator,
Mhm.
and through that, I started making relationships with venture capitalists to better support our portfolio companies in case they were seeking funding. And that opened my eyes to the possibilities of venture capital as a way to drive innovation. So that led to me being forming a great relationship with one of the founders of Sweater, which I became a scout, one of the beta testers of their fintech product. And from there, the opportunity came. I saw great alignment and I took it. I just said, why not? Let's see what I can do here for companies. And each year I started getting more interested in the space and getting more aligned with it. And through that, I became a scout in another startup, Comp Fund, then became a deal partner for Ghana's Ventures. Shout out to Lolita out there. And that's just progressively how you start developing your career in venture capital, is that you start refining your skill sets
Mhm.
and seeing more opportunities to develop them, and that aligns you more with others in the venture space. And once those network effects start taking place, that just starts the momentum of it. You can't really stop it. So that's what led me from CVP to helping Extra Capital to helping um, CVP, and then now being part of CVP.
Yeah, I think that like pretty much everyone I've met, you have been at more venture funds in your CV than probably anybody. So it's so interesting that you have gone, I've contributed to this and this and this and this, and having that kind of breadth of skill set and having like a Swiss Army knife of different sectors that you've looked at, different kinds of founders that you've met, and of course the different investors that you can now co-invest with if there is opportunity is
Mhm.
a very different kind of advantage that I feel like you have, based on the fact that you've really had to do everything from scratch, you know? So a lot of people that are listening are also either looking to transfer or looking to get into venture for the first time. And, there are a lot of different kinds of venture scouting programs or being a deal partner or anything like that that is not exactly full time just yet. What kind of skill sets did you feel were most beneficial that you were developing as you went through your career that helps you the most today, do you feel? You can't say network because that may not work for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be in venture, networking is just part of what you have to do.
For sure. For
You
sure.
know, so if you're not good at it, find the way that you can be comfortable with it in some way.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh, Now, as you mentioned, I did have to take a particular route, going being involved with separate funds,
Yeah.
and it's because of my background. I'm non-traditional, right? I'm
Yep.
not big firm, investment banking, top five, power five MBA, so since I don't have that in my CV, I needed to develop other things in my CV that can replace that. So
Hmm.
that's boots on the ground work.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what was the skill sets that led me here? Sourcing, right? Being able to identify opportunities, not just finding great startups, but opportunities for firms.
Okay. What does that mean?
Opportunities for them to get in front of other investors, for them to align with organizations that can provide them deal flow, right? Not just be the source, but sometimes find other channels that they can tap into. Also, you know, maybe subject matter experts that could align as resources for the funds.
That's interesting.
It's, it in venture, you're never done sourcing and you're never done pitching. So it's kind of like those skill sets end
Yeah.
up being the basis of it, right? On top of that is really assessing,
Okay.
is figuring out what are not just opportunities, but good opportunities. What is a fit to actually explore? Uh, the reason being is you don't want to waste anybody's time. It's out of the respect of founders and the VCs themselves. So assessing deals quickly is one of the skill sets that really helped me along the way.
That is really great. And so, how did you decide on the very first venture scout opportunity that you've had, as opposed to many other ones? Because it is very overwhelming nowadays
It
when
is.
young people or people of non-Stanford like backgrounds get into venture. And so, how do you kind of cut through the noise when you were in that decision-making process, the fork in the road?
That's a great question.
I went to it accidentally, so you must have had an actual decision that you made.
Yeah, and it's something that's on everybody's mind, right? What is the right opportunity for me?
Yeah,
And
because you can't sign on to more
right,
than one, really. It's too much.
it does become a lot.
Yeah.
It does become a lot because each one has their own investment thesis. So
Right.
it means
Right.
that you have to filter everybody. That means, yeah, you're not narrowing the pool, you're expanding it.
Yeah. Which is why
Now,
like it's very difficult to gain a lot of experience, but like at once. Like you couldn't
yeah.
have done all four firms at the same time.
Oh no, no. Now what worked for me, it was thesis. It was the thesis. I looked at the fund themselves. Is it something that resonated with me?
Okay.
Also, the type of support that they brought, right? Just asking some questions around the program, and was there some type of learning path that I could go through with it,
Great.
instead of just being almost like a referral base.
Yeah.
Was there more of like an interaction with the firm? That's
Yeah.
what I was seeking. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
I wanted to gain their insights
Hmm.
and absorb what they knew. And really something where, as an investor, you have to develop your own thesis, your own investment thesis, your lens. And naturally, I started doing that. Is in what aspect do I want to be involved in venture? What companies do I align with? What does my experience led me to provide? And found funds that match those things. So, for
Yeah.
example, Sweater was network effectable startups. I'm Latino, so increasing access to venture or other investment paths
Hmm.
is big for
Yeah.
me. So for that reason, Sweater's network effectable model with the fact that they're a public fund, again, democratizing venture capital, I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. That's
you
true.
know, I can add to this.
Hmm.
Um, Ghana's, community. Again, in LATAM and the US. Again, I'm from Peru, Latino, LATAM, US. I'm in both places. Community is big.
Yeah. Yeah. VC Familia is doing a great job.
Yeah, exactly. So that made sense to me. Comfund, the next one, then it was basically SaaS.
Hmm.
And I thought their model was innovative enough that it'll be interesting to pursue. So things that really pique my interest
That's
instead of
great.
just trying to get in.
Yeah. I think that's a big misconception, especially of, people who didn't come, people who were not born there, people who didn't grow up with high net worth families or people like that. And, even for myself being an investor, it's like you feel like you were 10 steps behind all the time. And venture has a way of being very opaque to make you feel like you're more like 100 steps behind when you kind of come into a new ecosystem, a new network, and all of that stuff, right? So even when
Right.
I'm like scouting for different startups and things like that, if it's a new ecosystem, you would still feel so fish out of water to the point that you think I don't have a choice. I will just accept this. And so that's why I ask you, what was your thought process when it came to your intentional choice and why you chose these things and, what it meant to you? Because I feel like, especially in down markets, it has a way of making you feel like you're out of time, you have no choice, like you have to sign on to something. And it's true what you said. It's less about just getting in, right? And it took myself a long time to really believe that, as well, just because of the effects that this industry naturally already had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that even now, being where I'm at, I still feel like I have to prove myself all the time.
You've been so
It's
many
like,
funds, though.
yeah, but still, it is that the way that we've been raised and come up is
Yeah,
that, as you mentioned, we've always had to overcome more than other counterparts.
yeah,
And even if really we don't, because I mean, everyone in their own respect in this field is brilliant,
hmm,
very capable, right? So even in that regard, you still feel that you have to overcome something.
yeah, yeah. And I think it feels it even more if you can't find like a mentor or somebody who's done it before you, who looks like you,
Oh
that you
yeah.
feel you can resonate with. And I know I can't. I don't know anybody else. And so even at the highest levels and the highest roles I've had, I still felt like, oh, I'm still looking for my mentor. Because of the fact that there isn't that much representation, you always felt like my friends have had this kind of support through their similar career, but I haven't had this, or so kind of overcoming that, I feel was very difficult to overcome, that a bit of imposter syndrome when you have certain titles or certain levels of achievement in your career, but there's still nobody else that looks like you, and there's still nobody else that makes you kind of feel less isolated in that
Yeah.
way in venture.
Absolutely. And that's why communities are so important. And
Yeah,
that's like VC Unleashed, they're doing a great job with
yeah.
for managers because it is so diverse in
Yes,
there.
yes.
I was surprised myself. I was like, whoa, different
You thought you'd be the
regions.
only one.
exactly. So, and and in an industry that is secular,
Mhm.
like venture is creating those type of communities is very important for just progress and, to tell you the truth, sanity.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to feel like you are doing something impactful, right?
Hmm.
And really, when we were talking about, in this down market, breaking into venture is extremely hard right now.
Yeah.
We all know that hiring in venture is around fundraising.
Mhm. Yep. So let's
So
talk about fundraising. Who do you fundraise from? How do you meet your network? All of these things come into play when you get to certain titles, and it's an extraordinary amount of pressure. There are certain people who just can't afford to be promoted, and that's insane. But that's a thing in venture. It's also a thing in law, but venture it's a lot.
true. Fundraising. Just had a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And
How was because it's your first time being in a fundraising active role, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
how that transition
horrifying.
to instead of being like, I can bring you funds, and then you're on the other side. How does that feel for you?
It's another mountain to climb.
Okay. Good
Uh
answer.
it really is. It's nothing like I've experienced before. Raising for a startup is nothing like raising for a fund.
Okay, great. How
Uh,
how do you depict your differences and what you've observed?
think of the difference between selling to SMBs and selling to enterprise.
Okay.
It's that big of a
I-
gap, you
That's
know?
true. Like a lot of funds are not that big. You don't need that many steps. Like
Right.
met everybody
Exactly.
within the few weeks.
Exactly. And, it's just LPs are so patient at this moment that this is almost like wartime for funds. There was
Yeah.
peacetime in 2021,
Right, right.
2020. Now this is wartime,
Mm.
and LP relations are number one.
Mhm. And what happens if you came from, you can't call up your school's endowment fund, or like you can't have existing relationships because you didn't come from this industry before, or those kinds of things, or you weren't a career investor. How would you develop these LP relationships from the get-go? And that's something I'm personally interested in too. Just coming from a family office, we don't fundraise. So how do you kind of build that from the get-go that you found to be effective?
Uh, Knowing that I would be raising at some point, I just had it in my mind that I would be raising. I began making these connections with family offices, with some high networks, and people that cater to my LPs.
Great. Like who? Like lawyers?
Uh, Lawyers,
Okay. So
accountants,
service providers. Okay, great,
yes,
great. Okay.
yes, people that
I love that
are
because they'll talk
connected.
to everybody.
Exactly, they're super connectors,
They're super
right?
connected. Yeah, that's right.
And being around these people means that these people are open with their network, because any positive relationship that happens,
Yeah, it goes back to them.
it comes back to them.
Yeah.
So always having that in mind,
Hmm.
always trying to create that win-win situation, and being a little bit more proactive about it. This is where I wish, I mean, if I would have known that CVP was happening, in 2023, I would have started kind of warming up everybody.
There you go. There you go.
Because it
Yeah.
is a long cycle, so you have to warm them up.
Yeah.
Mostly if you have these connections and they're, either investors themselves, but of course you're not going to be on their phone all the time.
Hmm.
So, and the last thing you want to do is hit them up and be like, "Hey, I'm raising. You want to invest?" So, unless you have that connection with them, so
Yeah.
warm them up. Begin having this interactions with them, and I always go back to the saying that says, if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money.
That's true. That is true of founders too.
Yeah, I tell founders that all the time.
Yeah.
It's never start with money, start with a question.
Mhm.
Ask for advice, ask for feedback, ask for insights, make it relevant, and people actually open up.
Mm.
If it's something interesting, they want to hear more about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of how you start nurturing that.
Hmm.
Because as a family office, it's all about the trust.
Hmm.
So once you know the opportunity and the benefit, now can I trust you to make this decision for me, right?
Yeah,
To go through with this.
yeah,
That's what takes time, is the trust building.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
interest part needs to be immediate.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of what I would say, is just find the people that you want to talk to
Hmm.
and find the network around them.
Hmm.
Another thing is, I mean, LinkedIn is great for this. I would say for sourcing and fundraising, I think that is great for it,
Yeah.
because you're able to just by title find people that are investors first, second, and work from there.
Yeah, that's very true. I did hear of like one of my friends, she's a first time investors relations, which is a very stressful title when you're in an emerging fund. So she's a first timer, and the only thing she could do was cold call. So she cold called on LinkedIn, and she did get a $500,000 check. And I was like, how? Like, really? I have no idea how this process actually works in the way that she did it. But I was like, that sounds amazing, and it sounds like when you have no other choice in a down market, what else do you do? There's a lot of investor poaching that's happening. There's a lot of by LP poaching that's insane, because there's no really a different way to protect your network. You build it and then you hope for it. But what else do you have besides that? You know what I mean?
That's it. When you start, that's all you have.
Yeah.
Even the most experienced GPs, when they, first time GPs, successful founders that turn into GPs, all they have is their network
Hmm.
and the trust they built through their traction. You have no traction, you have to build trust.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you have to build trust to get traction, or you have traction to build trust. So it's kind of like, but they're married.
Yeah.
So that's that's what I would say when it comes to fundraising, is know exactly who you want to talk to, so you can search, so you
Yeah.
can look for them, look who are the people that are aligned with them, and then go for those warm intros. Go for those warm intros, because eventually you're going to tap out, right? So tap out your network as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to be tapped out with or without you. So you
Yeah.
hopefully with you. That's always a hope. Yeah, no, that's really great, and it is really important. So, wanting to know what the next step is for your fund, and what startup you guys are most excited about that you would like to share, because we don't have the same kinds of deals. So, would love to know kind of where your day to day looks like.
Certainly. So my day to day is fundraising calls, meeting with founders, and looking to build the ecosystem in sports and venture. Uh, as of this moment, we're not deploying. So we are deploying later this year. When it comes to investing right now, is building the deal flow channels
Okay.
and basically the top of the funnel of deals, so
That's
that
also a really important thing to do for people who are getting into venture, is that you're building
100%.
your own funnel and make sure it actually looks like an Excel, looks like something that looks real, not just in your brain. Because that's something that shows that you're actually active and doing something in the community, as opposed to just prayer. Also a different strategy, but that is a common strategy I've heard. But yeah, absolutely. So, building all of this out is something that everyone can actually be doing today. So I love that advice.
Oh, definitely. It's imperative. You have to bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, is as an investor, you're an asset.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to see yourself as an investable asset for any fund that you join.
Yeah. like my very first one of my very first interactions when I was a founder, I wasn't looking for investment. I was talking to an investor out in Silicon Valley, and I was like, I thought it was being polite and the normal way to talk. So I'm like, oh yeah, and what kind of things can I help you with? What kind of things do you need? And he immediately was like, do you know any rich people? And my face just like dropped. Also, I was like 25. And I was like, I don't know how to answer this. What do I say to this grown up?
That's
I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I should stop talking to investors now.
it's like, whoa,
I
okay.
know.
The
It wasn't,
conversation just scaled. They went from 0 to 100.
I
Okay.
know, like real fast. And so I have a better understanding of what that seems like now, kind of a thing. He's like, yeah, he directly answered my question, but not in any way that I could do anything about it at this time.
And that is a little bit funny, it's the fact that everybody wants to be helpful,
Yeah.
but rarely anybody can.
Yeah. That is
Everybody
a
tells you,
great
"Hey,
quote.
what can I do for you?" Honestly, I'm pretty sure you can do almost nothing, but if you can, I will appreciate. Uh, I've defaulted to actually asking them, like, "Okay, so what are you working on? What are you needing help with?" Have that instead of just kind of, if there's anything that I can do,
Yeah, I know. In the
grant a
world.
wish. If you get three wishes,
Yeah.
and it's like be a little bit more directed, and or sometimes come back. It sometimes takes you a little bit to think of what you can do for some person.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna do something, I want to make sure that I'm able to do it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
say something that's feasible. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on, seeing yourself as an investment,
Hmm.
as a VC is something that is a mind shift for a lot, thinking that you're going to make investments, but you're not the investment. Where I tell up and coming aspiring VCs is that look at yourself as that, almost like a startup. You know, no firm has an HR department,
Yes.
so they don't have no clear cut hiring process, and they're not going to get something like that. They know how to invest, they know
Yeah.
how to look for opportunities and gaps and find things that will give them returns.
Yeah. True. Like rich people. So
Like, yes.
so thank you so much for coming on to another episode of Unlocking Venture Capital. I'm here with my friend Andres.